Hi and welcome to Reddit Confessions. If you think your relationship was complicated, wait until you hear this. No introductions, no backstories, just pain, panic, and a letter I was never supposed to find. It started with humming. Yeah, I know that sounds weird, but that's what did it. I was in the kitchen reheating soup, potato leek, the kind no one but me ever ate, and I heard the soft, off-key humming coming from upstairs. Not the kind that says someone's happy. The kind that sounds like someone's trying not to cry. And I froze. Because the house was supposed to be empty. She had left. Walked out 3 weeks ago after saying she needed clarity. No calls. No updates. Just silence. So who the hell was humming? I crept upstairs like an idiot in a horror movie, holding a wooden spoon like it would do anything. The humming got louder as I reached the office. That's when I saw it. The attic door was cracked open. A draft of warm, dusty air spilled out. And on the top step, just barely visible, was a blue envelope. My name scribbled in red marker. I didn't even register the silence when the humming stopped. I didn't look for anyone. I just stared at the envelope like it was ticking. I picked it up with shaking fingers. Inside was 8 handwritten pages. No date, no signature. But I didn't need one. I knew her handwriting like I knew my own name. I didn't think you knew. I really didn't. And now that I see you do, I can't face you. You deserve to hate me, Glenn. You really do. But you didn't. You kept loving me even while I drifted further and further away. That's what hurts most. You saw me falling, and instead of catching me, you stepped aside and watched me hit the ground softly. I dropped the letter. Literally. It slid out of my hands like it burned. And that was the first moment I realized. She thought I'd written her a goodbye, but I hadn't. Not with words. I'd written a goodbye with my silence. With the way I stopped asking questions. With how I stopped saying, I miss you, after she came home at 3 a.m. and smelled like vodka and someone else's cologne. She found my old garage journal. The one I started the night she said, "It's just work stuff, Glenn. Don't be dramatic." And in that journal, I wrote something on page 17 that changed everything. She's in love with someone else. I can feel it. But I love her too much to ruin her excitement. So I'll let her go slowly and pretend I don't notice. She read that, and then she left. Not to run, not to be with him, but because she thought I'd already given up. And the truth? I had, but not in the way she thought. This is just the first crack in the wall. I haven't even told you about the second envelope I found under her pillow, or the voicemail from a number I've never seen, or the text I got from her coworker that simply said, "You should probably sit down before reading this." But I'll get to that. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the kitchen table with the envelope still open beside me. The pages spread out like pieces of a dismantled bomb. The attic light was still on. The soup in the microwave had long gone cold. And I just sat there, staring at her words like they were alive, like they might rearrange themselves into something easier to accept if I waited long enough. They didn't. I don't think people talk enough about the physical part of heartbreak. The way it isn't just emotional. It's not just crying into a pillow or punching a wall. It's full-body nausea, shaky knees, breathing that turns into gasping. I couldn't even finish reading the last page until 3 in the morning. Because my hands kept cramping up. The letter was haunting. Not in a dramatic movie scene way. In a real way. Quiet. Intimate. Almost apologetic. She didn't confess to some whirlwind affair with a passionate stranger or beg me to forgive her. She wrote about me. About us. And the terrifying way she started to feel like she was disappearing inside our marriage. "There was a night," she wrote, "when I came home crying. It was raining, remember? I stood in the hallway waiting for you to ask me why my mascara was smeared. But you didn't. You just handed me a towel and walked past. I realized then, you knew. But you didn't want to know. And I didn't know which one of us was more cowardly." She was right. I did see it. I saw the texts pop up on her phone. I saw the way she flinched when I said, "I love you." I saw the way she turned her face away during kisses. I even saw the way she touched her necklace when she lied. Always that same subtle reach, like she needed to anchor herself to something real. But I didn't confront her, because I thought if I did, I'd lose her. And instead, I lost her anyway. That morning, after finally managing to sleep for maybe 30 minutes on the couch, I got a message on my phone. Unknown number. One sentence. You should probably sit down before reading this. I stared at it for a long time. I thought it was a scam at first. Some phishing attempt. But the area code matched her city's office line. I replied, "Who is this?" No answer. 10 minutes later, an email landed in my inbox from an address I didn't recognize. Just a string of numbers and letters. No subject. No text. Just a single attachment. A video file. For a second, I thought, I'm not going to open this. I should delete it. But of course I didn't. I watched it. It was a video of a hotel conference room. Business casual types walking around. Chatter. Clinking glasses. Harmless stuff. Until I saw her. Risa. Sitting at the edge of a table. Legs crossed. Drink in hand. Laughing. Not that light office laugh you give when someone says something mildly amusing. No. This was her real laugh. The one I hadn't heard in months. The laugh that came out when she was with people who truly got her. Next to her, leaning in too close, was a man. Mid-40s. Brown hair. Confident posture. One hand resting on her lower back like it belonged there. They weren't kissing. They weren't doing anything technically inappropriate. But the intimacy was unmistakable. And then she whispered something in his ear and he looked up directly into the camera. Dead center, and smirked. That smirk didn't just say, "Caught." It said, "We don't care." I paused the video. My palms were sweating. My heartbeat was in my ears. That was Tanner. The name that had floated around our dinner conversations for over a year. The name I used to joke about. And now, he was looking directly at the lens like this was a game. I don't remember much else from that morning. I think I blacked out for a while. Emotionally, at least. My inbox sat open. The letter still lay on the counter. And I, a grown man with a mortgage and a golden retriever named Jasper, sat on the floor next to the fridge, head against the wall, too drained to even scream. But it wasn't over. That same evening, I got a call from her sister. I hadn't spoken to Becca in months. She was always cold toward me. Like she thought Risa had settled for a guy who still wore socks to bed and spent Sundays organizing screws by size in the garage. But she didn't sound smug this time. She sounded nervous. "Glenn," she said, "there's something I found at Mom's. I think she meant for you to have it. It's another letter." Another letter? How many more did she leave behind? And why was her mother involved? I didn't ask questions. I just said yes. Becca said she'd drive over the next day. Now it's midnight again. I'm back in the same chair. The attic is dark. The video file is still open on my laptop, paused at the moment Tanner smirks. And all I can think is, if I had spoken up when I should have, would she still be here? Or did she leave because deep down she wanted me to say something, and I never did? Becca showed up at 10:17 a.m. sharp the next morning. Not a minute earlier, not a minute later. That was always her way, punctual to the point of robotic. She didn't even wait for me to invite her in. She just walked past me with a brown padded envelope clutched to her chest like she was smuggling national secrets. She sat down in the living room without a word, dropped the envelope on the coffee table, and looked at me with eyes I'd never seen on her before. Not angry, not judgmental, just hollow. "I didn't read it," she said. "Didn't even touch it until I realized the handwriting wasn't Mom's." I hesitated. "So you think Risa left it at your mom's house?" Becca nodded. "Stuffed behind the drawer in the spare room. Mom was cleaning and found it by accident. It's addressed to you, and someone else." That made me pause. Someone else. Becca didn't answer. She just stood, looked like she wanted to say something, and then left without closing the front door. I didn't open the envelope right away. Couldn't. My fingers felt like rubber. My throat was so dry it hurt to swallow. And honestly, I think some part of me was afraid I'd find something in that letter I couldn't come back from. Something that would make me wish I'd never asked questions at all. But of course I opened it. Inside were 2 letters. both handwritten. One folded neatly and marked Glenn. The other had no name, just a single word scrawled across the front in black ink. If. That was it. Just if. I read mine first, and what I found wasn't a letter. It was a map. A roadmap of every single moment in our relationship where she hesitated, and I didn't notice. Do you remember the night you got promoted and I made lasagna to celebrate? She wrote. You thought I was being sweet. But I had just come home from Tanner's hotel room and I couldn't look you in the eye, so I kept myself busy in the kitchen. You said you loved me that night. I almost threw up. She was that blunt, that cruel, or maybe just that honest. She didn't spare me from the pain. She didn't try to soften the truth. She confessed that Tanner wasn't her first slip, that there had been another man before him, a coworker named Jeremy who used to bring her almond croissants every Thursday. I remember those croissants. She used to tell me she got them from a bakery near the office. Nope, Jeremy. Apparently, their first kiss happened in a car. In our driveway, while I was inside, fast asleep, watching reruns of The Office and trying to ignore the obvious signs that my marriage was already bleeding out. The worst part isn't that I betrayed you, she wrote. It's that I tried to stop. I tried to choose you, but you made it so easy not to. You were always gentle, too forgiving. You'd turn away when you knew I was lying. You loved me more than I ever deserved, and that made me hate myself. So I ran to people who made me feel small, because then I didn't have to feel guilty. I stopped reading. I stood up, opened the window, and screamed. Not words, not her name, just noise, something primal, something I'd buried for so long that it came out ragged and ugly. I didn't cry. I didn't have tears left. I picked up the second letter, the one that said, if, with trembling hands. It wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't addressed to anyone. But the contents? They were meant for someone. It started like this. If you're reading this, then I didn't have the guts to face you. If you're reading this, then I chose the easy way out. And if you're reading this, then you already know everything. And then, the letter turned into a series of questions. Not statements, not explanations, questions. If I had stayed, would you have forgiven me? If I told you the truth, would it have killed us faster or saved us? If I hadn't met him, would we still be watching bad movies on Sundays? If I said I still love you, would it even matter now? I sat there reading and rereading those lines, wondering, was this for me? Or for him? For Tanner? For Jeremy? For someone else I hadn't even discovered yet? She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. The handwriting was hers. The guilt was hers. The regret, the kind that lingers at the corners but never apologizes, was undeniably hers. I folded the letters and put them back in the envelope. I placed the envelope in the drawer next to the sink, and I sat on the floor of the living room for over an hour, staring at the carpet like it held some kind of answer. Didn't. Later that night, I finally did something I should have done months ago. Called her, straight to voicemail. Then I texted her. I read the letters. We're not okay, but I need to see you. No response. But the next morning, a third letter arrived. This one wasn't handwritten. It was typed, signed, stamped, official. And it wasn't from her. It was from a lawyer. The envelope was thin, sharp-edged, and insultingly clean, like the kind you get with a parking ticket or jury summons. No perfume, no folded note inside, no traces of her handwriting. Just a professionally typed letterhead from a law office I didn't recognize and a name I'd never heard in my life. I stared at it for a good 5 minutes before opening it, hoping it was something else. A mistake. A misaddressed tax document. Anything but what it actually was. Inside was a single page. The wording was sterile, robotic, but I knew exactly what it meant after the first 2 lines. This letter serves as formal notice of your spouse Risa D. Caldwell's intent to pursue legal separation, pending divorce proceedings, and just like that, everything I'd been dreading, fearing, and choking back for months came crashing into focus. Not because she left, not because she cheated, but because she did all of it so quietly, like I wasn't even worth a confrontation. Like I was a loose end to be trimmed by legal assistance and deadlines and digital signatures. She was going to divorce me, cleanly, painlessly, like she was finally throwing away the last worn-out item she forgot in the back of the closet. I laughed, not because it was funny, because it was absurd. I had been writing letters in my head for weeks, rehearsing what I'd say when she came back. If she came back, imagining us sitting across from each other in therapy, or maybe on the front porch with cold coffee and awkward apologies. But she wasn't coming back, and she never intended to, and apparently she had help. Later that day, I looked up the law firm online. It was a boutique practice, mostly family law and estate planning. Clean website, testimonials from smiling ex-couples who amicably restructured their lives. I wanted to puke, but something stood out, a list of attorneys. And one of them, Cassandra Hoyt. That name. It rang a bell. And then it hit me. Cassandra was the same name I'd seen in a group chat on Risa's phone months ago. The same group Risa said was for book club, even though I never once saw her pick up a book after 2021. I felt like a fool. I was a fool. And I was tired of playing the quiet, noble victim. So for the first time in months, I stopped being passive. I called the number on the letter. It rang twice. Then a voice, calm, female, polished, answered. Caldwell and Hoyt. This is Cassandra speaking. I didn't even think. Hi, yeah, this is Glenn. Glenn Caldwell. Risa's. I paused. Her husband. Still. Silence. Then a short, clipped. Mr. Caldwell, I'm going to stop you right there. Any communications regarding this matter will need to go through email or be directed to your appointed counsel. I don't have counsel, I snapped, because I didn't know I was being divorced until 20 minutes ago. Another pause. Then she softened slightly. Mr. Caldwell, I understand this is difficult, but Risa has already initiated the process and we've advised her to avoid direct communication. For her emotional well-being. I almost laughed again. Her emotional well-being? Did you also advise her to lie for a year, have affairs, and disappear like a damn ghost? I asked, my voice breaking halfway through. Silence again. Then click. She hung up. And just like that, I was more alone than ever. But something had shifted in me. Not rage. Not clarity. Just urgency. I couldn't let this end without understanding what the hell really happened. I needed to know what was real and what was a performance. I couldn't heal from a hollow space full of half-truths. So I made a decision. I dug through our closet, pulled out the small fireproof lockbox I hadn't opened in years, and took out the only piece of leverage I had left. A shared storage drive. Risa and I had used it during our wedding planning, long before cloud syncs and phone apps took over. I had completely forgotten about it. The drive still worked. And what I found on it, well, that's where everything unraveled for real. Because buried inside a folder labeled August Retreat was a video. Not the hotel footage. Something else. It was recorded on Risa's phone. She must have uploaded it by accident, back when everything was synced automatically. In the video, Risa is sitting in a robe on a hotel bed. Her hair is wet. Her mascara is smudged. She's not crying, but she looks exhausted, depleted, and she's talking to someone off camera. I told him, she says quietly. I left the letter. Couldn't look at him. He's not stupid. He probably knew for a long time. He just never fought back. That's what hurt the most. I wanted him to scream, to tell me I was selfish, but he just sat there like he was already gone. And then, from the side, a man's voice, familiar and cold, asks, "Do you regret it?" She waits, then nods. "Yes, but not the way you think." And a video. I sat there in the dark, laptop screen glowing in front of me, her voice looping in my head. Not the affair, not the lies, but that answer. Yes, but not the way you think. And I knew then, there was still something she hadn't told me, something deeper, something that had nothing to do with Tanner or Jeremy or the lawyer who wouldn't answer my questions. And I was going to find it. The drive out to the retreat center was quiet. Too quiet. I didn't turn on music. I didn't check my phone. I didn't even bring Jasper, my golden retriever, because something about this trip felt like it needed to be done alone. Like stepping into a battlefield I wasn't sure I'd walk out of. The GPS led me an hour north, through winding hills and roads lined with oak and pine. The place was tucked away behind a dense patch of forest, with a gravel driveway and a small wooden sign that simply read, Ridgeview Wellness Center. I'd heard Risa mention it a few times in passing, always under the context of team building, corporate mindfulness, or executive bonding. I never questioned it. I should have. The moment I pulled up, I knew this wasn't some run-of-the-mill hotel. The buildings were sleek but rustic, minimalist cabins, open glass windows, woven hammocks, fire pits, and meditation decks. It looked like the kind of place people went to fall in love with nature, or each other. I walked into the main office, and the receptionist gave me a practiced smile. "Welcome to Ridgeview," she said. "Are you checking in?" "No," I replied. "I'm actually looking for someone who might have stayed here last month." Her name was Risa Caldwell. She was with a corporate group. The woman paused. Her smile faltered for a second. "I'm not sure I can give out guest information." I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. "She recorded a video in one of your rooms. She left me without explanation. I'm just trying to piece together what really happened." She looked at me for a long moment, then sighed. "Give me a minute." She disappeared into a back room, and I stood there, listening to the soft spa music and trying not to look as desperate as I felt. When she returned, she was holding a printed receipt and a sticky note. "I can't give you too much, but..." She stayed in cabin 7, the far one near the bluff. She extended her stay an extra night alone. That's all I can say. That was enough. I walked the trail that curved toward cabin 7. Each step felt heavier than the last. The air smelled like pine and rain-soaked wood. When I reached it, I stopped. The cabin was simple, one room, big windows, quiet porch. And through the glass I could see something. A scrap of paper on the table. It wasn't locked. I pushed the door open slowly. The place was empty, but it didn't feel abandoned. Felt paused. Like the ghost of a conversation still hovered in the corners. I moved toward the table, and my heart jumped into my throat. The scrap of paper was part of a printed itinerary. Not just hers. A full guest schedule. I scanned it, and there it was. Roommate, Tanner Evans. The name was printed clearly, right beneath hers. So it wasn't some harmless solo retreat. It was a couple's getaway, disguised under a professional retreat name. And no one questioned it because it was labeled corporate renewal. My stomach churned. I kept scanning, and that's when I saw something I hadn't expected. At the bottom of the page was a handwritten message in blue ink, scrawled in Risa's unmistakable handwriting. "He knows. I'm sure of it. He hasn't said a word, but he looks at me like I'm a stranger. What if I already lost him and this was just my excuse to finally fall?" She wrote that here, in this place, maybe that night, maybe while Tanner slept next to her. Or maybe after she stepped outside and realized the view from the bluff wasn't enough to quiet the guilt inside her. And for the first time since she left, I stopped blaming her completely. Not because she wasn't wrong. She was, but because I could feel how trapped she was. Between silence and shame. Between two versions of her life, one built on loyalty, the other on escapism. And I realized she never picked one. She just broke both. I stayed in that cabin for over an hour. I sat on the same chair where she probably sat. I touched the wood railing she leaned against. I closed my eyes and tried to feel what she felt. And all I could sense was confusion, aching, and the overwhelming weight of knowing she didn't want to lose me. But she also didn't know how to keep me. On the way out, the receptionist handed me a manila envelope. This came a week after she left. It was addressed to the center, not a specific person. We weren't sure what to do with it. I took it with trembling hands. Inside was a USB stick. No label. No note. I didn't open it until I got home. But when I did, I found a folder titled, "For Him." Inside were dozens of voice memos. Risa's voice. Some of them just seconds long. Others 5, even 10 minutes. And in every single one, she spoke directly to me. Like I was sitting beside her. like she knew I'd eventually hear them, like she wanted me to. The first voice memo was only 14 seconds long. Her voice came through my headphones quiet, shaky, like she just pressed record without preparing for what she was about to say. Hey, it's me. I don't know if you'll ever hear this, or if I'll even have the nerve to keep recording. But I need to talk. And this might be the only way I can get it all out without falling apart. Click. That was it. The second one started seconds later. A little longer. Still unsure, still stammering. I stayed up all night in that stupid cabin, thinking about how this all spiraled. About you. About us. About the moment I stopped being honest. Not just with you, but with myself. She took a breath, and I could hear it, the kind of inhale you take when you're about to confess something enormous. And then what followed was a truth I never saw coming. It wasn't Tanner who broke me, and it wasn't Jeremy either. It was before all of them, before we even said our vows. I paused the audio. I sat back in my chair, suddenly cold. This wasn't just about recent betrayal. This was something older, something I had missed entirely. I hit play again. Remember the night before our wedding, when you stayed at your cousin's place because you didn't want to see me in my dress early? You said it was tradition. You said it would make the day feel more magical. I told you I agreed. I lied. There was a long silence on the audio, just ambient noise, a soft click, like she was turning the recorder over in her hand. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. I didn't spend that night alone. I told you my bridesmaids were with me, but they left after dinner. And then, Caleb showed up. I froze. Caleb, her college ex, the one who was supposedly long gone. The one she said taught her what not to want in a man. I remember the way she'd flinch when his name came up. How she used to roll her eyes and call him a lesson. I never liked him, but I never thought I had a reason to be suspicious. Until now. He showed up drunk. Said he wanted to say goodbye the right way. I should have told him to leave. I should have locked the door. But instead, I let him in. We talked. For hours. About the past. About what went wrong. And then, God, I don't even know why. I kissed him. Another pause. Another breath. Her voice returned, now small, hollow. Nothing else happened. Just the kiss. But the moment it ended, I knew I couldn't marry you without carrying that lie. And I did it anyway. I buried it so deep I convinced myself it didn't matter. But it did. Because from that moment on, I never felt like I truly deserved you. I had to stop listening. I took the headphones off and pressed my palms into my eyes until everything went black. The air in the room felt too thick. Couldn't breathe. I had lived through every form of heartbreak I thought existed. Emotional distance, infidelity, abandonment. But this was different. This was history being rewritten. This was the realization that the version of us I had clung to for years was already flawed before the ink on our vows had dried. And it made everything else make sense. Her distance, her guilt, the way she kept trying to overcompensate and then sabotaging it right after. She wasn't just battling the weight of recent lies. She was drowning in the first one. And I had no idea. The next voice memo didn't start with her voice. It started with crying. Barely audible but real. I sat there, headphones on, listening to my wife break down in a way I had never seen in person. She sounded like she was trying to hold herself together and failing miserably. I know you probably hate me now, and I can't even blame you. But if you do listen to this, please believe that I never stopped loving you. I just didn't know how to love you right. I kept thinking I'd eventually become worthy of the life we built. But I never caught up. I stayed stuck in the version of me I was before you. I let the audio play all the way through. There were 10 recordings in total. Some of them were quiet reflections. Others were full of sobbing, apologies, whispers of memories she couldn't let go of. She spoke about our first apartment, about how she used to lay awake next to me wondering when I'd realize she wasn't who I thought she was. And then came the final memo. She didn't cry in this one. Her voice was clear, steady, resigned. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Glenn. I don't deserve it. I know that now. I'm just hoping that maybe, once the dust settles, you'll remember the good things. The real ones. Not the parts one poisoned. Not the lies. Just the mornings I brought you coffee without being asked. The way we danced in the kitchen when the power went out. The time I sang off-key in the car until you laughed so hard you cried. I hope you keep those pieces, even if you throw the rest away. The memo ended with one final sentence. One I'll never forget, no matter how far I try to distance myself from this version of my life. You were never hard to love, Glenn. I just never learned how to stop running. And just like that, it was over. No more letters. No more memos. Just silence. The silence of a woman who had already let go. And the silence of a man who had no idea he'd been holding onto a ghost for years. But what happened next wasn't something I ever expected. Because while I sat there, reeling from her confessions, my phone buzzed. A text. From her. Just 2 words. I'm here. When I saw her car in the driveway, I didn't believe it. I genuinely thought I was hallucinating. For a moment, I stood at the living room window, convinced my brain had conjured the whole thing out of desperation. But it was real. Her silver Subaru. Same dent in the side mirror. Same faded bumper sticker from that music festival we went to in 2015. It was parked crooked, like she pulled in too fast and wasn't sure if she'd be staying long. I stood there frozen, heart pounding in my chest like it wanted to run outside before I could. I didn't know whether to open the door or deadbolt it, whether to scream or collapse. And then there was a knock. Soft, hesitant. I opened the door, and there she was, Risa, hair pulled back in a loose braid, no makeup, dark circles under her eyes. She looked smaller somehow, like whatever strength she'd been wearing as armor had finally fallen off. She wasn't wearing anything dramatic, just a hoodie and jeans. But when our eyes met, everything between us, the years, the lies, the silences, crashed into that single moment. Neither of us spoke. She looked past me into the house. Is Jasper here? Yeah, I croaked, surprised by the sound of my own voice. He's sleeping upstairs. She nodded, then looked down at her feet. I won't stay long. I needed to see you before I disappear for good. I didn't answer. I stepped aside. She walked in, and for a second it felt normal. Familiar. Like the last 6 months hadn't happened. Like she'd just come back from the grocery store and forgotten the eggs. She sat at the kitchen table. The same table where I found her first letter. The same table where I used to leave her sticky notes that said stupid things like, "Don't forget your umbrella," or "Dinner's in the oven. Love you." I sat across from her, afraid to blink too hard in case she vanished. And then she said it. "I'm not here to ask for forgiveness," she began quietly. "I know I forfeited the right to that a long time ago, but I came here to ask you one thing." I braced myself. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, worn. Familiar. My wedding ring. The one I left on the counter the night I found her letter. She placed it between us like it was a crime scene relic. "If we had met today," she said, "if this was the first time we were meeting, no history, no guilt, no past, would you still fall in love with me?" The question shattered something in me. I wasn't prepared for that. Not after everything. Not after the letters, the hotel, the secrets, the video, the voice memos. I'd spent weeks drowning in her absence. I'd built up walls just to breathe without her in the house. And now she was here asking if, given a fresh start, I'd make the same mistake twice. I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I didn't know. Part of me wanted to scream, "Are you serious? After everything?" Another part of me wanted to reach across the table, grab her hand, and say yes, in a heartbeat. Because I did love her. Still, somewhere beneath the heartbreak, I loved the version of her that used to fall asleep on my chest while humming old jazz tunes. I loved the way she used to snort when she laughed too hard. I loved the way she held her breath during emotional scenes in movies like she was afraid to interrupt the moment. But could I love her again? Now? "Why are you asking me that?" I finally asked. She looked down at her hands. "Because I've been trying to figure out who I am without you, and I don't like the answer." "That's not my responsibility anymore," I said. surprising even myself with how steady my voice came out. "I know," she whispered, "but I think I needed to hear you say it." She stood up. I thought she was about to leave. I thought that was it, the final scene in this painful, unscripted drama. But instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out a notebook. I wrote down everything, every ugly truth, every moment I lied, every time I should have walked away but didn't. "I don't want you to read it now, maybe not even this year. But if you ever need to understand why I became the person who broke you, it's all in here." She set it next to my laptop. Then she reached for the ring again. Her hand hovered above it like she wasn't sure what she was supposed to do with it now. "Keep it," I said quietly. Her hand froze. "I don't mean that in a romantic way," I continued. "Keep it as a reminder. Not of me, but of the version of yourself you never want to be again." She nodded, tears silently sliding down her face. She didn't wipe them away. She just stood there, soaking in the moment, the air, the silence. "I wish I had loved you better," she said, barely above a whisper. And then she turned, walked to the door, and left. No goodbye, no promises, just the soft click of the door closing behind her. I didn't follow her. I didn't look out the window to watch her drive away. I sat at the table for what felt like hours, staring at the notebook, wondering if I'd ever open it, wondering if I even needed to, because the truth was, maybe I didn't need answers anymore. Maybe the only thing I needed now was closure. But what happened 2 weeks later? That's when I realized her story wasn't as finished as she made it seem. It arrived in a simple brown envelope. No return address, no markings, just my name, written in that same soft handwriting I could recognize from across a room. Inside was a single Polaroid photo, a folded letter, and a pressed daisy. I'll start with the photo. It was a picture of Risa, standing by the cliff at Ridgeview, hair tied back, eyes squinting in the sun. She looked peaceful, not ecstatic, not broken, just whole, like someone who had finally laid down a burden she'd been carrying for far too long. On the back of the photo were 5 words written in pencil. "Thank you for letting go." I unfolded the letter with a trembling breath. This one was different from all the others. No confessions, no shame, no riddles or pain, just her voice finally steady, clear, human. "Glenn, I know I said I was done writing, but this isn't about closure. It's about gratitude. Thank you for loving me, even when I made it impossible. Thank you for staying silent, even when it hurt. Thank you for finally seeing me for who I was, and still choosing not to hate me. I'm starting over, not with someone else, not to escape, just starting over. For real this time. I'll be okay, and I hope someday you are too. With love, not regret, Risa." And the daisy? It was the same flower she tucked into my shirt pocket the day we got engaged. She said it was her favorite because it's nothing fancy, but it still blooms like it belongs anywhere. I never understood that until now. I sat with all of it in my hands for a long time. Then I smiled. Not a dramatic, life-changing grin. Just a small, tired, genuine smile. Because it hit me. I was okay. I wasn't over her. Not completely. But I was past the worst of it. The ache in my chest had dulled. The fog in my head had lifted. I was no longer waiting for her shadow to appear at the door. That weekend, I packed up the last of her things and donated the ones she told me to give away. I even found a letter I'd written to her months ago, never mailed. I read it once, then burned it in the fireplace. Not out of anger, just peace. A ritual. An ending. I started taking Jasper on longer walks. I stopped skipping meals. I called my brother back for the first time in forever. And for the first time in years, I started listening to music I liked. Not what she used to play in the car. And last week, I signed up for a community cooking class. Don't laugh, I've already burned rice once. But I'm trying. I guess what I'm saying is, healing isn't always a straight line. Sometimes it comes wrapped in a letter. Sometimes it comes in the quiet of an empty house. And sometimes it begins when you stop rewriting the past and start giving yourself permission to imagine a future. Mine is unwritten. but it's no longer haunted. And for now, that's enough. Thanks for listening. If you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. What moment in this story hit you the hardest or reminded you of something from your own life? Drop it in the comments below. Let's talk about it. You're not alone. And if you're new here, don't forget to follow Reddit Confessions for more real, emotional, and honest stories every week. Until next time, take care of yourself. You deserve peace.